The recruitment station on Earth's moon colony was always busy, but today felt different. Hundreds of young humans stood in long lines, waiting to sign their names for the Galactic Defense Corps. The war against the Vorith Empire had been going on for 3 years now, and humanity needed every soldier it could find. In the middle of one such line stood a small woman. She was perhaps 22 years old, with dark hair cut short and eyes that seemed to look through everything and everyone around her. She carried no bags. She wore simple clothes. She said nothing to anyone. The recruitment officer, a tired man named Sergeant Williams, had been processing candidates for 12 hours straight. When the small woman stepped up to his desk, he barely looked at her. "Name?" he asked, his fingers ready on the keyboard. The woman did not answer. Williams looked up, annoyed. "I said, what's your name?" Still nothing. The woman simply pointed at a small card she had placed on his desk. Williams picked it up and read it. His eyebrows went up slightly. "Mute?" he asked. The woman nodded once. "Born that way or accident?" She held up one finger. "Born that way." "Okay." Williams scratched his head. "Look, miss, I appreciate your wanting to serve, but the military requires communication. You can't fight in a squad if you can't talk to your teammates. Maybe you could work in logistics or..." The woman shook her head firmly. She pointed at the form for combat infantry. Williams sighed. "The tests are brutal. The training will break most people who can speak perfectly fine. How are you going to survive if you can't even call for help?" The woman's face showed no emotion. She simply tapped the form again. Something in her stillness made Williams uncomfortable. There was a weight to her silence that he had never felt before. It was not the silence of someone who had nothing to say. It was the silence of someone who had chosen to let the universe fill in the gaps. "Fine," Williams said finally. "But don't say I didn't warn you." He paused, then laughed at his own joke. "Sorry." Poor choice of words. The woman's lips curved slightly. It might have been a smile. She signed her name on the form. Williams looked at it. "Kara Chen," he read aloud. "Welcome to the Galactic Defense Corps, Private Chen. May God have mercy on your soul." Kara Chen picked up her papers and walked away without looking back. Basic training took place on Mars, in a facility called Camp Prometheus. It was here that raw civilians were turned into soldiers, or broken into pieces trying. The desert landscape was harsh and unforgiving. The instructors were worse. Drill Sergeant Okonkwo was a massive Nigerian man with scars across his face and a voice that could shake buildings. He had trained thousands of soldiers over his 20-year career. He had seen every type of recruit imaginable. He thought nothing could surprise him anymore. Then, he met Kara Chen. On the first day, Okonkwo lined up his new recruits and walked down the row, inspecting each one. When he reached Kira, he stopped. "You're small," he said. Kira looked straight ahead. "Answer me when I speak to you," Okonkwo shouted. Kira reached into her pocket and pulled out a small card. She handed it to him without changing her expression. Okonkwo read the card. His face showed nothing. "Mute," he said flatly. "They sent me a mute." The other recruits shifted uncomfortably. Some of them smiled, thinking they had found an easy target. Okonkwo handed the card back to Kara. "I don't care if you're mute, blind, or missing both legs. In my camp, everyone trains the same. Everyone suffers the same. You fall behind, you're gone. Understand?" Kara nodded once. "Good. Now drop and give me 50. All of you." The recruits hit the ground and started doing push-ups. By 30, most of them were struggling. By 40, several had collapsed. By 50, only a handful were still going strong. Kara Chen finished at the same pace she had started, her breathing even, her face unchanged. She stood up and waited silently while others gasped and groaned around her. Okonkwo watched her carefully. There was something strange about this one. The weeks that followed were brutal. Recruits were pushed beyond their limits every single day. They ran until they vomited. They fought until they bled. They trained with weapons until their hands cracked open. Through it all, Kira-chan remained silent. She never complained. She never asked for help. She never showed pain or exhaustion or fear. She simply did what was required and, then, did more. The other recruits did not know what to make of her. At first, some of them tried to bully her. A large man named Kowalski thought it would be funny to trip her during a night march. Kira fell hard on the rocky ground, cutting her hands and knees. She got up without making a sound. Blood dripped from her palms. She wiped them on her pants and kept marching. Kowalski laughed. "What's wrong, little mouse? Can't even squeak?" The next day, during combat training, Kowalski found himself paired with Kira for hand-to-hand fighting. The other recruits gathered to watch, expecting a quick and easy victory for the big man. What they saw instead would become legend. Kowalski charged at Kira with a wild swing. She stepped aside like water flowing around a stone. Her hand shot out and struck his throat. As he gasped for air, she swept his legs and dropped him to the ground. Before he could react, her knee was on his chest and her thumb was pressing against his eye socket. The whole thing took less than 3 seconds. Silence filled the training yard. Even Sergeant Okonkwo stood frozen. Kira held her position for a moment, then released Kowalski and stepped back. She offered him her hand to help him up. Kowalski stared at her, his face pale with shock. After a long moment, he took her hand and let her pull him to his feet. "I'm sorry," he said quietly. "For yesterday." "I'm sorry." Kira nodded once and walked away. From that day forward, no one bothered Kira-chan. As training continued, Kira began to earn a different kind of attention. She was not the strongest recruit or the fastest. But there was something about the way she moved, the way she observed, the way she acted that set her apart. During tactical exercises, she seemed to know where enemies would appear before they showed themselves. During stealth missions, she could disappear into shadows that shouldn't have been able to hide anyone. During shooting practice, her aim was uncanny. Sergeant Okonkwo called her into his office one evening. Kira stood at attention while he studied her file. "Your scores are among the highest I've ever seen," he said. "Your physical tests are excellent. Your tactical assessments are off the charts. But there's almost nothing in your background file. No family listed. No education records. No employment history. Where did you come from, Private Chen?" Kara's expression did not change. "I'm not expecting you to answer," Okonkwo continued. "I know you can't. But I'm going to tell you something that I've never told any recruit before." He leaned forward. "I've seen a lot of soldiers in my time. Most of them are just people trying to do a job. Some of them are natural fighters. A very few of them are something else entirely. They're not soldiers. They're weapons. Living, breathing weapons that just happen to look like humans." He pointed at Kira. "You're one of those. I don't know how or why, but I can see it. And I'm going to recommend you for special operations training after basic. The regular infantry would be a waste of what you are." Kira's eyes flickered slightly. It was the first sign of emotion Okonkwo had seen from her. "You have questions," he said. "Write them down." Kira pulled out a small notepad and pen. She wrote quickly and handed the paper to Okonkwo. He read it aloud. "Why do you care what happens to me?" The sergeant was quiet for a long moment. Then, he spoke slowly. "Because this war is eating humanity alive. We're losing ground every day. The Vorath are stronger than us, more numerous than us, more advanced than us. We need every advantage we can get. And, you, Private Chen, are an advantage. Whatever made you what you are, it also made you valuable. And I intend to make sure that value is not wasted.
Kara took back her notepad and wrote again. What if I don't want to be a weapon?
Okonkwo met her eyes. Then, you shouldn't have joined the military.
Kara held his gaze for a long moment.
Then, she nodded once and left the office without writing anything else.
Basic training ended 2 months later.
Of the 300 recruits who had started, only 112 remained. They stood in formation under the Martian sun, waiting for their assignments. One by one, names were called and destinations announced. Most recruits were sent to standard infantry divisions.
Some went to vehicle operations. A few went to naval assignments. When Kara Chen's name was called, the assignment was different. Private Kara Chen.
Report to Special Operations Command, Station Omega, for advanced training.
Immediate departure. Murmurs ran through the formation. Station Omega was legendary.
It was where the elite of the elite were trained.
It was where humanity's deadliest soldiers were created. Kara stepped forward, took her papers, and walked toward the transport shuttle without looking back. She did not wave goodbye to anyone.
She did not pause for a final glance at the camp that had shaped her into something new. She simply moved forward, as silent as always, into the unknown. Station Omega floated in the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter. It was a massive structure, hidden from enemy sensors by some of humanity's most advanced technology. From the outside, it looked like just another dead rock drifting through space.
Inside was a different story. Kara arrived with a group of 40 other candidates.
They came from military bases all over human space, each of them selected for exceptional ability in some area. They were the best of the best, the survivors of countless training programs, the chosen few. None of them had ever heard of a mute soldier being selected for special operations. The commander of Station Omega was a woman named Colonel Sarah Mitchell. She was 50 years old, with gray hair and cold blue eyes. She had fought in every major battle of the war and had survived wounds that would have killed most people. Her left arm was a prosthetic replacement.
Her right eye was artificial. Half her internal organs were synthetic.
She was also the most decorated soldier in human history. When the candidates assembled for their first briefing, Colonel Mitchell walked down the line, examining each one. When she reached Kira, she stopped.
"Private Chen," she said. "I read your file. Impressive scores.
But, this program requires perfect communication.
How do you intend to coordinate with a team when you cannot speak?"
Kara pulled out her notepad, but Mitchell held up her hand.
"I don't need a written answer. I need a solution." Kira thought for a moment.
Then, she began to move her hands in a complex pattern.
Sign language. Mitchell's artificial eye whirred slightly. "I know over 100 forms of sign language, Private. That's not a solution. Your teammates won't understand you." Kira's hands moved again, this time differently. Mitchell's eyebrows rose. "Military tactical signals. You know them?" Kira nodded. "All of them?" Another nod. Mitchell was silent for a moment.
Then, something that might have been respect crossed her face.
"In combat, you'll have a communication device linked to a text-to-speech system. You'll type, it will speak for you. It's not perfect, but it works. However, for tactical situations, you'll need something faster." She turned to address all the candidates. Special operations is not about individual skill. It's about teamwork.
Every member of a team must be able to communicate instantly and clearly, even in the chaos of battle.
Private Chen has a disability that would normally disqualify her from this program." She paused.
However, her scores indicate that she may possess something more valuable than the ability to speak.
She may possess instinct.
The kind of instinct that knows what to do before conscious thought catches up. The kind of instinct that can turn the tide of a battle. She looked at Kara.
"I'm going to give you one chance, Private Chen.
If you can prove that your silence is not a weakness but a strength, you will stay."
If you cannot, you will be reassigned. Understood? Kara nodded once. Good. Training begins in 1 hour. Do not be late.
The training at Station Omega made basic training look like a vacation.
Candidates were pushed beyond every limit they had ever known.
They were subjected to simulated torture to test their resistance.
They were dropped onto hostile environments with minimal equipment.
They were forced to fight each other with live weapons, restrained only enough to prevent death.
Many candidates washed out in the first week. Others followed in the weeks after.
By the end of the first month, only 20 candidates remained.
Kara Chen was one of them.
But she had done more than simply survive. She had started to become something else. Something that the other candidates watched with a mixture of awe and fear.
During team exercises, Kara moved like she could see the future.
She positioned herself in exactly the right place at exactly the right time.
She made decisions faster than seemed humanly possible.
She eliminated targets with cold precision that left even experienced soldiers shaken.
And she did all of this without making a single sound. Her instructors began to take notice.
They started assigning her to more difficult scenarios, wondering if they could find her limits.
They could not. One exercise involved infiltrating a simulated enemy base to rescue a prisoner.
The base was defended by automated turrets, motion sensors, and a squad of training opponents equipped with weapons that delivered painful but non-lethal shocks.
Kira's team had 4 members.
The plan called for 2 members to create a distraction while the other 2 moved in to grab the prisoner. Instead, Kara gestured for the team to wait.
She moved forward alone.
She disappeared into the shadows of the simulated complex.
10 minutes passed. Then, 20.
The other team members grew worried. They were about to break cover and search for her when the lights in the base went dark. Moments later, Kara emerged from the main entrance, the prisoner walking beside her. She had somehow disabled every defense system, neutralized every opponent, and completed the entire mission by herself. When asked how she did it, she simply shrugged.
Colonel Mitchell was watching from the observation room. Her artificial eye recorded everything.
She played the footage back multiple times, trying to understand what she had witnessed.
She could not explain it.
But she knew one thing for certain: Kara Chen was not an ordinary soldier.
She was not even an ordinary special operations candidate. She was something new. Something that had never existed before.
And the war against the Vorith was about to give her a chance to show the universe exactly what she was.
6 months into training, Colonel Mitchell called Kara into her office.
It was late at night, and the station was quiet.
"Sit down, Private Chen." Kara sat. Mitchell studied her for a long moment.
"I've been in the military for 30 years. I've seen thousands of soldiers come and go. I've watched heroes rise and legends fall.
I thought I understood the full range of human capability." She paused. "You have made me reconsider that belief." Kara's face remained still. "Your performance in training has been unprecedented.
You have broken records that have stood for decades.
You have completed exercises that were designed to be impossible.
You have done things that my instructors cannot explain."
Mitchell leaned forward.
"And you have done all of this without speaking a single word." She opened a file on her desk.
"I pulled some strings. Got access to records that are normally classified.
I know where you came from, Kara Chen. I know what happened to you before you joined the military." For the first time, Kara's composure flickered. Something dark passed behind her eyes.
"I'm not going to ask you about it," Mitchell continued. "Whatever happened in your past is your own business. But I want you to understand something." She closed the file. "The person you were before doesn't matter anymore. What matters is the person you are now and the person you will become. And I believe you will become something extraordinary."
She slid a document across the desk.
"Your training is complete. You have been assigned to Strike Team 7, callsign Shadow Unit. They are the best infiltration team in the entire Galactic Defense Corps. And, as of today, you are one of them. Kira looked at the document. Her new rank was listed as corporal.
Her specialty was listed as infiltration and elimination.
There's one more thing, Mitchell said.
Every member of a strike team has a battle name.
A name that is used on missions for security purposes. Your teammates chose yours. She handed Kara a small patch.
On it was embroidered a single word, Ghost.
Kara looked at the patch for a long time.
Then, she looked up at Colonel Mitchell and nodded once. It was the closest thing to gratitude she had ever shown.
Shadow Unit consisted of 6 members.
Their leader was Captain James Morrison, a grizzled veteran who had been fighting the Vorith since the war began. He had lost count of the missions he had run and the enemies he had killed.
The second in command was Lieutenant Yuki Tanaka, a Japanese woman with cybernetic enhancements that made her faster and stronger than any unaugmented human.
She was cold and efficient, with a reputation for never missing a shot.
The team's heavy weapons specialist was Sergeant Dmitry Volkov, a massive Russian man who could carry weapons that normally required vehicle mounting.
He was loud, crude, and utterly fearless. The tech specialist was Corporal Ahmed Hassan, an Egyptian genius who could hack any system and build devices from scraps. He talked constantly and seemed incapable of silence. The medic was Corporal Maria Santos, a Brazilian woman who had saved more lives than anyone in the Corps. She was warm and compassionate, the emotional heart of the team. And now there was Kara Chen, callsign Ghost, the silent newcomer who no one knew what to make of. When Kara first arrived at Shadow Unit's base of operations, she was met with suspicion.
Strike teams were tight-knit units where trust was everything.
A new member was always viewed with caution, especially one who could not speak.
Morrison briefed her in his office.
"I've read your file," he said.
"I know what you can do.
But files are just paper. Out there, in real combat, paper means nothing.
Only actions matter." Kara listened. "Your teammates don't know you. They don't trust you. That's going to take time to change.
Until then, follow orders, watch your sectors, and try not to get anyone killed.
Including yourself." He paused. "Any questions?" Kira shook her head.
"Then, welcome to Shadow Unit, Ghost.
Try to live up to that name."
The other team members were less formal in their welcome.
Volkov laughed when he saw her. "This is our new teammate? She's tiny.
My weapon weighs more than she does." Tanaka said nothing, but her eyes measured Kara with cold calculation. Hassan was the friendliest.
"A mute, huh? That's actually kind of cool."
You know, studies show that people who talk less often think more deeply.
"Not that I would know anything about that. I never stop talking.
My mother used to say I came out of the womb giving a speech."
"Can you believe that?" Santos approached Kara with genuine warmth. "Don't mind them. They're idiots, but they're good idiots. Welcome to the family, Ghost."
She offered her hand.
Kira shook it. "If you ever need anything, just let me know. I know you can't talk, but you can write, right? Or use the communication device? Whatever works for you." Kira pulled out her notepad and wrote, "Thank you." Santos smiled. "See? Communication isn't so hard."
Over the following weeks, Kira slowly began to integrate with the team. She trained with them every day, learning their patterns and preferences, understanding how they moved and fought. She also studied them. She watched Volkov's boisterous exterior and saw the pain he hid underneath, the memories of comrades lost that he drowned in loud jokes and louder laughter. She watched Tanaka's cold efficiency and recognized the armor of someone who had been hurt too many times to risk caring again. She watched Hassan's constant chatter and understood it as a shield against the silence of space, against the loneliness of war. She watched Santos's warmth and saw the strength it took to maintain hope in the face of endless death. And she watched Morrison, who watched everyone, whose eyes carried the weight of every decision he had ever made, every life he had saved and every life he had lost.
Kira said nothing about what she saw.
But she understood.
And understanding was the first step to trust. Shadow Unit's first mission with Kira came 3 weeks after her arrival.
Intelligence had located a Vorith communications relay in an asteroid field. The relay was feeding information to enemy fleets, helping them coordinate attacks on human colonies.
The mission was simple: infiltrate the relay, plant explosives, and get out before the charges detonated. Simple on paper, deadly in practice. The Vorith were unlike any enemy humanity had ever faced. They were not human. They were not even close to human.
Their bodies were tall and thin, covered in dark scales that could shift color to blend with their surroundings. Their faces had no recognizable features, just smooth surfaces with sensory organs that humans could not understand. They communicated through vibrations in the air, sounds too low for human ears to hear. They were also ruthless, intelligent, and absolutely committed to the destruction of humanity. Shadow Unit approached the relay in a stealth shuttle, running silent to avoid detection. The asteroid field provided cover, but it also provided danger.
One wrong move could alert the enemy or smash their ship against a floating rock.
Morrison briefed the team one final time.
Entry point is on the north side of the station. Hassan will disable their security systems remotely.
Tanaka and Ghost will move in first, clearing the path.
Volkov and I will follow with the explosives. Santos stays with the shuttle for extraction.
He looked at each team member.
This is a quiet mission. No noise, no alerts.
If they know we're here, we're dead.
Understood? Everyone nodded. Morrison's eyes lingered on Kira.
Ghost, this is your first real mission.
Stay close to Tanaka.
Follow her lead.
Don't do anything stupid. Kira nodded.
Good.
Let's move.
The infiltration began smoothly. Hassan worked his magic on the security systems, creating blind spots for the team to exploit. Tanaka moved through the station like a shadow, her cybernetic eyes detecting threats before they became problems. Kira followed close behind, and Tanaka noticed immediately that something was different about the new team member. Ghost moved like she was born in shadows. Her footsteps made no sound. Her presence left no trace.
If Tanaka had not known she was there, she would have sworn she was alone. They encountered their first Vorith guard around a corner. Tanaka raised her weapon, preparing to take the shot. Before she could fire, Kira was already moving.
She flowed past Tanaka like water, closed the distance to the guard in 3 silent steps, and struck with surgical precision. The Vorith collapsed without making a sound, dead before it hit the ground.
Kira turned and looked at Tanaka, waiting.
Tanaka stared at her for a moment. Then, she nodded once and moved forward. They had found their rhythm. The mission continued without major problems until they reached the central core of the station. Here, the explosives needed to be planted on the main power conduit to ensure complete destruction of the relay. The problem was the guards.
A dozen Vorith soldiers patrolled the core in rotating shifts.
Their patterns were precise, their attention constant. There was no way to reach the conduit without being seen. Morrison assessed the situation through his scope.
Too many, he muttered. We need a distraction. Volkov, can you? He stopped because Kira was already moving.
Ghost.
Tanaka hissed. What are you doing? Kira did not respond.
She simply walked into the open, toward the guards. The team watched in horror as she approached the Vorith. Every instinct screamed that this was suicide. One small human against a dozen alien soldiers. It was impossible. Then, the impossible happened. Kira moved through the guards like a ghost through mist. She was there, and then, she was not. She struck, and enemies fell. She twisted, and weapons missed her by centimeters. She flowed, and death followed in her wake. In 30 seconds, it was over. 12 Vorith lay dead on the floor.
Kira stood among them, untouched, her breathing even.
She turned and gestured to the team, clear.
Morrison was the first to move. He walked past the bodies, his eyes never leaving Kira.
When he reached her, he stopped.
"What the hell are you?" he asked quietly. Kira's expression did not change.
She simply pointed at the power conduit, reminding him of the mission.
After a long moment, Morrison nodded. "Right. Let's finish this." The explosives were planted. The team extracted without further incident.
20 minutes after they left the asteroid field, the relay exploded in a brilliant flash of light.
Mission successful.
But everything had changed. In the shuttle on the way home, the team sat in silence.
Everyone was processing what they had witnessed. What Kira had done should not have been possible. No human could move that fast, fight that efficiently, kill that cleanly. Yet she had.
Santos was the first to speak.
"Ghost, that was incredible."
Volkov laughed, but there was a nervous edge to it.
"Incredible? That was terrifying. I thought I was good at killing things."
She made me look like a child with a toy gun. Hassan was uncharacteristically quiet. His eyes were fixed on Kara with something like wonder. Tanaka said nothing, but her expression had shifted. The cold suspicion was gone, replaced by something else.
Respect, perhaps. Or recognition. Morrison watched Kira from across the shuttle.
His face was unreadable. "When we get back," he said finally, "you and I are going to have a conversation, Ghost."
Kira nodded.
But whatever conversation Morrison had planned would have to wait. Because when they returned to base, urgent news was waiting for them. The Vorath had launched a major offensive.
3 human colonies were under attack.
Millions of lives hung in the balance. The war had just escalated. And Shadow Unit was about to be thrown into the heart of the fire. For the first time since she had joined the military, Kira Chen was going to face real combat on a massive scale. And the universe was about to learn what happens when a ghost decides to make herself known. The emergency briefing room on Station Prometheus was packed with military officers, intelligence analysts, and holographic displays showing the devastation unfolding across human space. 3 colonies were burning: New Shanghai, with its population of 8 million, Kepler's Rest, a mining settlement of 2 million, and Sanctuary, a refugee world holding survivors from earlier attacks, nearly 6 million souls. Shadow Unit stood at attention as Admiral Helena Cross delivered the situation report. Her voice was steady, but the strain showed in the lines around her eyes. The Vorath fleet emerged from hyperspace 12 hours ago. They bypassed our defense lines using a previously unknown route through the Orion Nebula. Our response fleets are still 3 days away. Local defense forces are holding, but they won't last much longer. The holographic display shifted to show tactical data. Red markers indicated enemy positions, overwhelming in number. We're deploying every available strike team to provide support.
Shadow Unit, your assignment is Sanctuary.
The Vorath have landed ground forces and are pushing toward the civilian evacuation centers. Your mission is to slow them down long enough for the evacuation to complete.
Morrison stepped forward. "Admiral, what's our estimated opposition?" "Conservative estimates put enemy ground forces at approximately 40,000. You'll be working alongside the local militia, which numbers about 2,000 combat-capable personnel." The numbers hit like a physical blow. 40,000 against 2,000.
Those were extinction odds.
Admiral Cross continued. "I won't lie to you. This is a desperate situation. Your job isn't to win the battle. Your job is to buy time. Every hour you hold is another transport full of civilians that escapes. Every minute matters."
She looked directly at Morrison. "Captain, your team has the highest success rate in the Corps. I need that success now more than ever."
"Can you do this?" Morrison's jaw tightened. "We'll do what needs to be done, Admiral. That's all I ask." Dismissed. The transport to Sanctuary took 6 hours. The team used the time to review intelligence, check equipment, and prepare mentally for what was coming. Kira sat apart from the others, her eyes fixed on the tactical displays. She studied the enemy positions, the terrain, the civilian locations. Her mind worked through scenarios faster than conscious thought, identifying patterns and possibilities. Santos approached and sat beside her. "First major engagement, huh?" she said quietly. Kira nodded. "It's different from the small stuff. Bigger. Louder. More chaotic. Things happen that you can't predict, can't control. All you can do is react and hope you react fast enough." Kira looked at her. Santos smiled sadly. "I know you probably don't need advice. After what I saw on the relay mission, I'm pretty sure you're more capable than any of us. But I wanted to say something anyway." She paused. "Don't try to save everyone. You can't. No one can. Just do what you can, save who you can, and forgive yourself for the rest. Otherwise, this job will eat you alive." Kira pulled out her notepad and wrote, "How do you do it? Keep caring when there's so much death?" Santos read the note and was quiet for a moment. "Because the day I stop caring is the day I become one of them. Not the Vorith, they're just doing what their nature demands. I mean the ones who treat people like numbers. Statistics. Acceptable losses. I refuse to be that. Every life matters. Every single one." She touched Kira's shoulder. "I see something in you, Ghost. Something powerful. But also something wounded. Whatever happened to you before, whatever made you stop speaking, it doesn't define you. What you choose to do with your life, that's what matters." Kira held her gaze for a long moment. Then, she wrote, "Thank you." Santos smiled. "That's what family is for." Sanctuary was burning when they arrived. The colony had been beautiful once, a green world of forests and lakes, chosen specifically for its peaceful environment. The refugees who lived here had already lost everything once. Now they were losing it again. Shadow Unit deployed to the outskirts of the main civilian center, where the fighting was heaviest. The local militia commander, a woman named Major Chen, no relation to Kira, briefed them on the situation. "The Vorith are pushing from 3 directions. We've got barricades set up at the main approaches, but they keep finding ways around. Our people are exhausted. We've been fighting non-stop for 16 hours. Morrison studied the tactical display. "What's your evacuation status?" "About 40% complete. We've got maybe 100,000 civilians left to move. At current rates, we need another 12 hours. The enemy won't give us 12 hours. I know." Major Chen's voice was heavy with fatigue and despair. "We're doing everything we can." Morrison turned to his team. "All right, here's the plan. We split into 2 groups. Tanaka, Volkov, you're with me on the eastern barricade. That's where the pressure is heaviest. Hassan, Santos, Ghost, you take the western approach. Keep them busy, slow them down, and fall back if necessary." He looked at each member. "Remember, we're not here to win. We're here to buy time. Every minute counts. Don't take unnecessary risks, don't be heroes, just do the job." His eyes lingered on Kira. "Ghost, you've proven yourself in small engagements. This is something else entirely. Stay with the group. Don't go off on your own." Kira nodded. But something in her eyes suggested she would do whatever she felt was necessary, regardless of orders. The western barricade was a hastily constructed wall of rubble and vehicles, manned by exhausted militia fighters and a handful of regular soldiers. Kira surveyed the defensive position with a critical eye. It was poorly designed. The sightlines were wrong. The fallback positions were inadequate. The ammunition distribution was inefficient. She pulled out her notepad and handed it to Hassan. "What's this?" he asked, reading. "Tactical suggestions?" You want to reorganize the entire defense? Kira nodded.
Ghost, no offense, but we don't have time for major changes.
The Vorith could attack any minute. Kira took the notepad back and wrote quickly, current position falls in 30 minutes. My changes by 2 hours. Choose. Hassan stared at her.
Then, he looked at Santos.
Santos shrugged. She hasn't been wrong yet.
After a moment of hesitation, Hassan began issuing orders. The militia fighters were confused and annoyed, but they moved as directed.
Positions shifted. Ammunition was redistributed. Sightlines were cleared. The whole reorganization took 8 minutes. 4 minutes later, the Vorith attacked.
They came in waves, hundreds of dark shapes flowing through the ruined streets like a tide of death. Their weapons fired energy bolts that burned through armor and flesh alike. Their movements were coordinated, inhuman, terrifying. The militia fighters opened fire. Energy beams and projectiles tore into the advancing enemy. Vorith fell, but more took their place. Hassan worked furiously at a portable terminal, trying to hack enemy communications and disrupt their coordination.
There's too many of them. They're adapting to our frequency jamming.
Santos moved among the wounded, patching holes and stopping bleeding, her hands never still.
Just keep them back. We need time. Kira stood at the center of the barricade, watching the battle unfold. Her eyes tracked enemy movements, identifying patterns, predicting actions.
She saw a weakness in the Vorith formation, a gap where their coordination faltered. Without thinking, she vaulted over the barricade and ran toward the enemy.
Ghost! Hassan shouted. What are you doing? Kira did not answer. She could not answer.
But her actions spoke louder than words ever could.
She hit the Vorith line like a thunderbolt.
Her blade flashed in the firelight as she cut through one enemy, then another, then a third. She moved with supernatural speed, dodging energy blasts that should have killed her, striking weak points that should have been impossible to find. The Vorith faltered. Their coordination broke as they tried to deal with this impossible threat in their midst.
The gap in their formation widened.
Behind her, the militia fighters watched in disbelief. Then, they rallied. Fresh energy filled their exhausted limbs. They poured fire into the confused enemy ranks, exploiting the chaos Kira had created. The attack broke. The Vorith retreated, leaving dozens of dead behind. Kira walked back to the barricade, her blade dripping with alien blood. She was wounded, cuts and burns covering her arms and torso, but her face showed nothing. She stopped in front of Hassan and wrote on her notepad, 2 hours bought.
What's next?
Hassan stared at her. Then, he laughed, a sound of disbelief and admiration mixed together.
You're insane, he said. Completely, absolutely insane.
And I think I love you for it. The next 5 hours were a nightmare of continuous combat. The Vorith launched assault after assault, testing different approaches, probing for weaknesses. Each time, the defenders held, but barely, and only because of Kira. She was everywhere at once. When a flanking force threatened to overwhelm the southern edge, she was there to cut them down. When an enemy commander tried to rally his troops for a concentrated push, she infiltrated their position and killed him before he could give the order. When the ammunition ran low and the barricade seemed about to fall, she led a counterattack that pushed the enemy back far enough to resupply. The militia fighters began to call her the Silent Death. They spoke of her in whispers, as if she were more legend than woman. Word spread to the other defensive positions. On the eastern barricade, Morrison heard reports of a soldier who could not speak but could kill dozens of enemies without being touched. He knew immediately who they were talking about. "Damn it, Ghost," he muttered. "I told you to stay with the group." But he could not deny the results. The western barricade was holding better than anyone had expected. The evacuation was ahead of schedule because of it. As dawn broke over Sanctuary, the situation shifted. The Vorith had received reinforcements during the night. Their forces now numbered close to 60,000, and they were preparing for a final, overwhelming assault. Morrison called all team members together for an emergency briefing via communication devices.
Intelligence reports indicate the enemy is massing for a full-scale attack.
Every position simultaneously.
They're going to throw everything they have at us.
His voice was grim.
Current evacuation status is 78%. We need another 4 hours to get everyone out. Based on enemy numbers, our defensive positions will fall in two.
Silence followed his words.
Hassan spoke first. Is there any chance of reinforcements arriving early? None.
Our fleets are still 18 hours out.
Tanaka's voice cut through. Then, we delay them.
Whatever it takes.
How? Volkov asked. We're already stretched thin. There's nothing left to give. Kara's text-to-speech device activated.
The mechanical voice that spoke her typed words was flat and emotionless, but the words themselves carried weight.
I have an idea. Everyone waited. The Voreth commander is coordinating from a position 2 kilometers behind their lines. Mobile command unit.
Heavily guarded but not expecting an attack. Take out the commander, the assault loses coordination. Buy time for evacuation.
Morrison considered this. That's behind enemy lines.
Through 60,000 hostile troops.
You'd never make it. Not you. Me. Alone. Absolutely not. That's suicide. Kara's device spoke again. Not suicide.
Calculated risk.
I've studied their patterns. There are gaps. I can move through them. One person, silent, invisible. Ghost. It's what I was made for.
The line was quiet for a long moment. Santos spoke, her voice tight with emotion.
Ghost, I told you not to try to save everyone. This isn't saving everyone. This is throwing yourself away. No.
This is giving others the chance to save themselves.
Different thing.
Morrison's voice was heavy.
If you go, you won't have backup. No extraction. You'll be completely alone. I've always been alone. This is just the first time it might matter.
The silence stretched.
Then, Morrison sighed. I can't order you to do this. I won't order you to do this. If you go, it's your choice. Understood. Choice is made. Keep the lines held. I'll handle the rest.
Before anyone could respond, the communication clicked off.
Kara was already moving. The journey through enemy territory was unlike anything Kara had ever attempted.
60,000 Voreth stood between her and the command unit. Every step was a potential death sentence.
But death had never frightened Kara Chen.
She had made peace with it long ago, in the darkness of a past she never spoke of. What frightened her was failure. The thought of all those civilians, all those families, dying because she was not good enough. She would not let that happen. She moved through the Voreth like a shadow through water. She used every skill she had ever learned, every instinct she had ever developed. She found the gaps that Morrison said did not exist. She slipped through spaces that should have been impossible. And, when she could not avoid detection, she killed.
Quickly, silently, without hesitation.
Bodies fell behind her, markers of her passage, but she never lingered. She was always moving, always flowing toward her target. 2 hours into her infiltration, she reached the outer perimeter of the command unit. It was a massive structure, surrounded by elite guards and bristling with sensors.
A frontal assault would be suicide. But Kara had no intention of attacking head-on. She found a drainage tunnel, barely wide enough for her body. She crawled through darkness and filth for 20 minutes, emerging in a maintenance shaft inside the structure itself. From there, she moved like a ghost in truth. Past guards who never saw her. Through corridors that should have been impassable. Toward the heart of enemy command.
She found the Vorith commander in a central chamber, surrounded by communication equipment and tactical displays. It was larger than other Vorith she had encountered, its scales darker, its presence more imposing. Around it stood 20 elite guards, the best the enemy had to offer. Kira studied the room, calculating angles, measuring distances.
The math was simple. 20 enemies. One of her. The odds were acceptable. She moved. The fight lasted exactly 43 seconds.
Kira struck from the shadows, her first blow killing a guard before anyone knew she was there. She flowed through the room like water through rocks, her blade finding gaps in armor, her hands striking vital points. The elite guards were skilled. They were fast. They were deadly. They were not enough. Kira took wounds. Energy blasts burned her flesh. Blades cut her skin. Pain was everywhere, constant, overwhelming. But she did not stop. She could not stop. One by one, the guards fell. The commander tried to flee, but Kira was faster. Her blade found its throat. The massive alien collapsed, its life bleeding out onto the floor. Kira stood in the center of the carnage, breathing hard, her body screaming with pain. She was wounded badly. Blood loss was becoming critical. She needed medical attention soon or she would die. But first, she had one more thing to do. She moved to the communication console. Her fingers, slick with blood, typed quickly. She accessed the enemy command network, the system that coordinated the entire Vorith assault force. And then, she did something unprecedented. She typed a message. A single message, broadcast on all frequencies, in all languages, to every ship and soldier on both sides of the battle. Attention all forces. Vorith command has fallen. The silent death sends her regards. Humanity stands. On the defensive lines, the message hit like a shockwave. Morrison stared at his communication device, unable to believe what he was hearing. The words were being broadcast everywhere, echoing across the battlefield, reaching every fighter on both sides. "Ghost," he whispered. "You crazy, beautiful, impossible soldier." The Vorith assault, which had been building to an overwhelming crescendo, suddenly faltered. Enemy forces hesitated, confused by the loss of central coordination. Their attack, instead of being a unified wave, became a scattered collection of uncoordinated actions. The defenders rallied. With enemy coordination broken, they could focus their fire, exploit weaknesses, hold the line. The evacuation continued. Transports lifted off one after another, carrying thousands of civilians to safety. And, on the other side of the battlefield, in a room full of dead enemies, Kirachin collapsed to the floor. Santos found her 3 hours later. The medic had refused to stay behind when the team pushed forward after the Vorith retreat. She had insisted on joining the search party, driven by something she could not explain. When she entered the command chamber and saw the bodies, she gasped. 20 elite Vorith guards, the most deadly soldiers the enemy had, all dead. And, in the center, crumpled on the floor like a broken doll, lay Kara. "No," Santos whispered, running forward. "No, no, no." She reached Kira and immediately began medical assessment. The wounds were extensive. Burns, cuts, internal damage. By any reasonable measure, Kira should have been dead hours ago. But there was a pulse. Weak, thready, but there. "She's alive." Santos shouted into her communication device. "I need immediate evac. Ghost is alive but critical." The next few hours were a blur of emergency surgery, blood transfusions, and desperate medical intervention. 3 times, Kara flatlined. 3 times, Santos brought her back. When Morrison arrived at the field hospital, Santos was covered in blood, her eyes red with exhaustion and tears. "She's stable," Santos said before he could ask. "Barely. The next 24 hours are critical. If she makes it through those, she might survive." Morrison looked at Kira through the window of the intensive care unit. She looked so small, so fragile, surrounded by machines keeping her alive. What she did was impossible, he said quietly.
I know.
She killed over 30 elite guards by herself. Infiltrated a position that should have been impenetrable.
Took out the enemy commander. Broadcast a message that broke their coordination across the entire battlefield. I know. She saved everyone.
80,000 civilians who would have died.
Our entire team. The militia. Everyone. She saved them all.
Santos nodded, wiping her eyes. She told me once that she didn't want to be a weapon, Morrison continued.
But that's exactly what she is.
The most effective weapon humanity has ever produced. And she used herself to save others. He turned to Santos. Stay with her.
Don't leave her side.
If she wakes up, I want the first thing she sees to be a friendly face.
I wasn't planning on going anywhere.
Morrison started to leave, then stopped. When she wakes up, tell her something for me.
What?
Tell her I'm proud of her. Tell her that Shadow Unit is proud of her. Tell her that because of what she did today, her battle name is going to be known across the entire galaxy.
He paused. Ghost is about to become a legend.
News of the Battle of Sanctuary spread faster than light itself. The story of a single soldier, a woman who could not speak, infiltrating an enemy position and killing their commander single-handedly became the most talked about event of the war.
Military analysts studied her tactics. Politicians cited her bravery.
Common people spoke her battle name in tones of wonder and reverence.
Ghost.
Within days, that name was everywhere. It was painted on weapons and vehicles. It was chanted at rallies.
It became a symbol of human defiance against an overwhelming enemy. But Kira heard none of this.
She lay in a medical coma, her body fighting to repair damage that would have killed anyone else. Santos kept watch, sleeping in a chair beside her bed, refusing to leave even when ordered. 3 weeks after the battle, Kira finally opened her eyes. Santos was there, as promised. Her face lit up with relief. You're awake, she said, her voice thick with emotion.
Thank God. Thank everything. You're awake.
Kira's eyes moved slowly, taking in the room, the machines, the bandages covering her body. She tried to move and winced as pain shot through every nerve.
Don't try to move, Santos said quickly. You're still healing. You're going to be okay, but it's going to take time.
Kira's hand moved, slowly, painfully, toward her notepad on the bedside table.
Santos placed it in her fingers. With tremendous effort, Kira wrote a single word, evacuation. Santos smiled through tears. Complete. Everyone made it out.
80,000 civilians, safe because of you. The Voreth retreated from all 3 colonies. The attack failed completely. Kira closed her eyes. Relief washed across her features. There's something else you should know, Santos continued.
You're famous. Your broadcast, your battle name, it's everywhere. People are calling you the hero of Sanctuary. Military command wants to give you the highest honors. Politicians want to meet you. Everyone wants to know who Ghost really is. Kira opened her eyes and wrote, Don't want fame. Don't want attention. Just want to do my job. I know. Morrison knows. We're protecting your identity as much as we can. But, Ghost, that name is out there now. It's become a symbol.
People need something to believe in during this war, and, right now, they believe in you.
Kira considered this. Then, she wrote, Can I refuse? Santos laughed softly. You can refuse anything you want. You've more than earned that right. But, I don't think the legend is going to stop just because you want it to. Kira looked at her for a long moment. Then, she wrote, What does the team think? They're proud of you. All of them. Volkov won't shut up about how you killed more enemies in one night than he has in his entire career. Hassan has been analyzing your infiltration route and says it breaks every rule of tactical engagement. Tanaka actually smiled when she heard you were going to survive. That might be the first time she's smiled in years. Kara's lips curved slightly. It might have been a smile. And, Morrison, she wrote. Santos's expression softened. Morrison, he's not good at emotional stuff.
But, he sat outside this room for 3 days straight after the battle.
Wouldn't sleep. Wouldn't eat. Just sat there, waiting for news.
When they told him you were stable, he finally let himself collapse from exhaustion.
She paused. He told me to tell you that he's proud of you. That shadow unit is proud of you. He said that your battle name is going to be known across the galaxy.
Kara read this and was still for a long time. Then, she wrote, I'm not a hero.
I'm just someone who did what needed to be done.
That's exactly what a hero is, Santos said gently. Someone who does what needs to be done when others can't or won't. You are a hero, Ghost. Whether you accept that title or not, it's the truth.
Kara did not respond.
But something in her eyes changed. A weight lifted, perhaps. Or maybe a new weight settled into place.
The weight of expectation. The weight of a legend being born. Recovery took 3 months.
3 months of physical therapy, surgeries, and slow, painful healing. 3 months of learning to walk again, to fight again, to be herself again.
During that time, the war continued.
Human forces, emboldened by the victory at Sanctuary, launched several successful counteroffensives. The Vorath, shaken by the loss of their coordination network, retreated to regroup and reconsider their strategies. But everyone knew this was only a pause. The enemy would return, stronger and more prepared than before. When Kara was finally cleared for duty, she returned to Shadow Unit to find that things had changed. The small team had become famous, associated forever with the ghost who had emerged from their ranks. Other soldiers looked at them with a mixture of awe and envy. Morrison called a team meeting on Kara's first day back.
Welcome back, Ghost, he said. I won't waste time on sentiment.
The situation has evolved.
Command has given us a new assignment. He activated a holographic display showing a massive Vorath structure deep in enemy territory. This is the enemy's primary strategic command center. Not a field unit like what Ghost destroyed. This is the heart of their entire war effort.
Every major decision, every fleet movement, every battle plan flows through this facility. He looked at each team member.
Our mission is to destroy it. Volkov laughed. Captain, that thing is in the middle of the largest enemy fleet concentration in the galaxy.
There must be 1 million soldiers guarding it. 1.3 million, according to our intelligence, Morrison corrected.
So how exactly do we get in?
Morrison smiled grimly.
That's where it gets interesting. We're not going in alone.
This is going to be a coordinated attack involving multiple strike teams, regular military forces, and a fleet assault. He zoomed in on the display. Our specific role is infiltration. While the main forces engage the enemy, Shadow Unit will slip through their defenses, penetrate the command center, and plant charges on the primary systems.
Hassan whistled. That's ambitious. It's necessary.
Our analysts believe that if we can destroy this facility, we can cripple the Vorath war effort for years.
It might even end the war. Tanaka spoke, her voice flat. What's our extraction plan?
Morrison was quiet for a moment.
There isn't one. Once we're inside, the fleet will begin a withdrawal to draw enemy forces away. By the time we complete the mission, there won't be any friendly ships left in the system.
The implications settled over the team like a cold blanket.
Santos spoke softly. You're saying this is a one-way trip. I'm saying that extraction is unlikely. But not impossible.
If we can find alternative transportation, if we can steal an enemy vessel, if circumstances align in our favor, there's a chance we could make it out.
A small chance, Tanaka said. Yes. A small chance. But, a chance nonetheless. Silence filled the room. Morrison looked at his team. I won't order anyone to take this mission. Volunteers only. If you want out, no one will blame you. No one moved. No one spoke. Kara's text-to-speech device activated. When do we leave?
Morrison met her eyes. Something passed between them, a recognition of shared purpose, shared sacrifice.
48 hours. Get your affairs in order, say your goodbyes, make your peace.
In 2 days, we fly into hell. The night before departure, Kira sat alone in her quarters, writing in a journal she had kept since basic training. She had never shown it to anyone. It contained her thoughts, her feelings, all the words she could never speak. A knock at her door interrupted her writing. Come in, her text-to-speech device said.
Santos entered, carrying 2 glasses and a bottle. I thought you might want some company, she said. And some good whiskey. It might be our last chance for either. Kara nodded and gestured to a chair.
They sat in comfortable silence for a while, sipping drinks and watching the stars through the viewport.
Santos spoke first. I've been thinking about what you said before Sanctuary. That you don't want to be a weapon. But you've become one anyway. How do you feel about that? Kara typed, I made peace with it. A weapon can protect as easily as destroy. It depends on who holds it. And who holds you? I hold myself. That's what matters. Santos nodded slowly. I've read a lot about you since Sanctuary. Not the classified stuff, just the stories people tell. They say you appeared out of nowhere.
That no one knows where you came from or why you don't speak.
Some people think you're not even human. Kira's fingers hesitated over the keyboard. Then, she typed, do you want to know the truth? Only if you want to tell me. Kira was silent for a long time. Then, she began to type. I grew up in an orphanage on Earth. The other children were cruel. I stopped speaking when I was 7. Not because I couldn't, but because no one listened.
Words seemed pointless. She paused, then continued. When I was 14, the orphanage was attacked by raiders.
They killed everyone. I survived by hiding. By being silent. By being invisible.
I watched them murder the people who raised me, and I couldn't do anything to stop it. Santos listened, her eyes filled with compassion.
After that, I lived on the streets. I taught myself to fight. I became good at it. Very good. Fighting was the only thing that made me feel alive. The only thing that gave me purpose.
She looked at Santos. When the war started, I saw a chance to use what I had become for something meaningful.
To protect people who couldn't protect themselves.
To make sure what happened at my orphanage never happened to anyone else. Santos reached over and took Kara's hand. That's why you pushed yourself so hard at Sanctuary.
Why you went on that suicide mission. You weren't just trying to save those people. You were trying to save the children you couldn't save before. Kara nodded slowly.
Oh, Ghost, Santos whispered. You've been carrying so much weight, for so long, all by yourself.
Kara typed, not anymore. Now I have a team. A family. For the first time since I was 7 years old, I have people worth fighting for. Tears rolled down Santos's cheeks. We feel the same way about you. All of us. You're our family too.
They sat together in silence, hands clasped, until the stars shifted and the first light of morning crept through the viewport. Tomorrow, they would fly into war.
Tomorrow, they might die.
But tonight, they had found something worth more than survival.
They had found belonging.
And that was worth any sacrifice the universe might demand.
The assault fleet emerged from hyperspace in perfect formation.
147 warships, the largest human military operation of the entire war, appeared in enemy territory like a fist of steel and fire. The Voreth response was immediate and overwhelming. Thousands of enemy vessels scrambled to intercept, filling the space around their command center with a wall of hostile metal and energy. Inside the stealth shuttle carrying Shadow Unit, Kara watched the battle unfold through tactical displays. Ships clashed in brilliant explosions of light. Weapons fire painted the darkness in streaks of deadly color. Death came quick and random, claiming victims on both sides without mercy or meaning. Morrison spoke over the communication system.
Fleet engagement is proceeding as planned. Enemy forces are being drawn away from the command center.
We have a 30-minute window to reach our insertion point. The shuttle accelerated, its advanced stealth systems hiding it from enemy sensors.
Around them, larger ships fought and died to create this opportunity. Hassan worked at his console, monitoring enemy detection networks. So far so good. They don't know we're here. Tanaka checked her weapons. How many soldiers will be inside the command center?
Estimates vary, Morrison replied. Best case, about 50,000.
Worst case, double that. Volkov laughed nervously. And there are 6 of us. Good odds. We're not fighting all of them. We're avoiding them.
Ghost proved at Sanctuary that a small team can accomplish what armies cannot if they move smart and stay quiet.
All eyes turned to Kira.
She sat still, her expression calm, her body relaxed. If she felt fear, she showed no sign of it.
Santos spoke softly. Whatever happens in there, we stick together. No one gets left behind. Kira's device activated, agreed. Together.
The command center was a massive structure, an artificial planetoid of metal and technology that served as the brain of the entire Vorath war machine. Its surface bristled with weapons, sensors, and docking bays for the countless ships that supplied and protected it. Shadow Unit's shuttle approached from below, using the structure's own mass to block enemy sensors. They docked at an emergency maintenance port, one of hundreds of small access points that the Vorath used for external repairs.
Morrison opened the shuttle door.
Beyond was a narrow corridor leading into darkness. From here, we move fast and quiet.
Hassan, you have the route? Uploaded to everyone's neural interface. Follow the green path.
They moved out in formation.
Morrison led, followed by Tanaka and Volkov. Hassan and Santos came next. Kira brought up the rear, her senses stretched to detect any threat.
The interior of the command center was vast and alien.
Corridors twisted in patterns that did not follow human logic.
The air was thick with strange smells and sounds that belonged to another species entirely. Everything was designed for Vorath physiology, which meant it was uncomfortable and disorienting for humans. For the first 2 hours, they encountered no resistance.
The Vorath were focused on the external battle, confident that their perimeter defenses would keep any intruders out.
They did not expect enemies to already be inside their walls.
Then, they reached the first checkpoint.
It was a security barrier blocking access to the inner sections of the facility. 20 guards manned the position, their weapons ready, their attention sharp. Morrison hand-signaled the team to hold position.
Too many to take quietly, Tanaka whispered. If even one of them gets an alert out, we're finished. Hassan studied his scanner.
I can disable their communication systems, but only for about 30 seconds.
After that, they'll go to backup channels. 30 seconds isn't enough time to neutralize 20 guards. Kara moved forward and typed quickly, I can do it. Create a distraction on the left. I'll take the right. Morrison hesitated. Ghost, that's not suicide. Mathematics. Trust me. After a long moment, Morrison nodded. Tanaka, you and Volkov will create the distraction.
Hassan, be ready with that communication blackout.
Santos, stay with me in reserve. Ghost, do what you do best.
The operation began with perfect precision.
Tanaka and Volkov emerged on the left side of the checkpoint, weapons blazing.
The guards reacted instantly, turning to face this unexpected threat, returning fire with deadly accuracy. Hassan triggered his communication jammer.
30 seconds began counting down. And Kara moved.
She flowed through the right side of the checkpoint like darkness given form. Her blade sang silent songs of death as it found gaps in armor, vital points beneath scales. Guards fell one after another, their bodies collapsing before they could cry out.
25 seconds. Kara took down her fifth guard, spinning past an energy blast that would have ended her life. 20 seconds. Her sixth and seventh fell together, victims of a single devastating strike. 15 seconds. The remaining guards on the right finally realized the threat, but by then, it was too late. Kara was among them like a predator among prey, moving too fast to track, striking too hard to survive. 10 seconds. The last guard on the right died with Kara's blade in his throat. 5 seconds. Tanaka and Volkov finished off their targets, the combined assault overwhelming the defenders. 0 seconds. Silence. 20 guards lay dead. Shadow units stood victorious. Clear, Morrison breathed. Move out, quickly. They passed through the checkpoint and continued deeper into enemy territory.
The next several hours were a grueling test of endurance and skill.
More checkpoints, more guards, more opportunities for death.
Each obstacle was overcome through some combination of stealth, violence, and luck.
But luck was running out. As they approached the central core of the facility, enemy activity intensified dramatically.
Patrols were everywhere.
Sensor sweeps came every few minutes. The Vorith had finally realized that something was wrong. Morrison called a halt in a maintenance alcove.
"We're about 500 meters from the target," he said quietly. "But the route ahead is crawling with hostiles.
Our original plan won't work."
"Alternative approaches?"
Tanaka asked. Hassan shook his head. "I've scanned every possibility. They're all heavily guarded. The Vorith are locking down the entire sector." "Then, we fight through," Volkov said grimly. "Against how many? Thousands?"
"We'd never make it."
Kira's device spoke, "There's another way." Everyone looked at her. "I've been studying their patterns. There's a gap in their security rotation. It lasts 45 seconds. One person, moving fast, could slip through." "One person?" Santos asked. "Only one. Any more would be detected." Morrison understood immediately. "You want to go alone?" "Again. The mission requires it."
"One of us reaches the core and plants the charges. The others hold this position and provide distraction."
"It's the only way."
"Ghost, the last time you went in alone, you nearly died."
"Nearly isn't the same as actually. I survived."
"I'll survive again."
Tanaka spoke, her voice flat. "She's right. It's the logical choice.
She's the only one of us who could possibly make it through that gap."
Santos grabbed Kara's arm. "No.
I won't let you sacrifice yourself again."
Kara gently removed Santos's hand and typed, "Not sacrifice. Strategy.
"And, this time, I have backup." She looked at each team member.
"You believed in me when no one else did.
You became my family when I thought I would never have one. Whatever happens next, I want you to know that these past months have been the best of my life."
She paused. "Now let me do what I was made to do. Let me be the ghost one last time."
The security gap was exactly where Kira had predicted.
She slipped through like smoke through fingers, invisible, silent, deadly.
The central core was protected by the most elite Vorith guards in existence. They were bigger than normal, enhanced with technology and training that made them nearly unstoppable. 100 of them patrolled the area around the primary systems.
Kira studied them from the shadows.
She counted their movements, timed their rotations, identified their blind spots. The mathematics of death played out in her mind, calculating trajectories and probabilities. Then, she moved. The first guard died without knowing it.
The second followed moments later.
Kira slid between patrols like a ghost between dreams, leaving bodies in her wake but never alerting the living.
50 meters to the target.
She took down another guard, then another. The bodies were piling up, but still no alarm.
The Voritha's confidence in their own security was working against them. 30 meters. A patrol turned unexpectedly.
Kira froze, becoming one with the shadows. The guards passed within arm's reach but never saw her.
She waited until they moved on, then continued. 20 meters.
The primary systems were ahead, massive computers that controlled everything the Vorith did in this war. Kira reached into her pack and pulled out the explosive charges.
10 meters.
She placed the first charge on the main power conduit.
The second went on the communication hub.
The third on the data storage center.
5 meters.
The final charge went on the central processing unit, the brain of the entire facility.
Done. Kira activated the timer. 15 minutes until detonation. 15 minutes to get out. She turned to leave.
And found herself face to face with a Vorith commander.
The commander was ancient by Vorith standards, its scales faded to a dull gray, its body stooped with age.
But its eyes were sharp, intelligent, and filled with something that Kira recognized.
Understanding.
It spoke in the low vibrations of its species, sounds that human ears could barely detect.
But, somehow, words formed in Kira's mind, translated by some unknown mechanism. You are the one called Ghost. Kira froze. No Vorith had ever spoken directly to a human before.
They communicated only through battle and death. I have studied your kind since this war began, the commander continued.
Fascinating creatures. So fragile, yet so determined.
You fight against impossible odds and somehow find ways to win.
Kira's hand moved toward her blade.
I am not going to stop you, the commander said. The charges will detonate.
This facility will be destroyed. Perhaps the war will end because of it.
Kira hesitated, confused.
I am old.
I have seen enough death to last many lifetimes.
My people believe they can exterminate your species. I know better.
You are like fire, small flames that spread until they consume everything.
This war was a mistake.
Many of us knew it, but we were not powerful enough to stop it. The commander moved aside, clearing Kira's path to escape.
Go, Ghost. Complete your mission. End this war.
And, when it is over, tell your people that not all Vorith wanted this destruction.
Some of us only wanted to survive, just like you. Kira looked at the ancient alien for a long moment.
Then, she did something that surprised even herself.
She bowed.
A gesture of respect, one warrior to another. The commander returned the bow.
Then, Kira ran. The 15 minutes that followed were the most intense of Kira's life. Alarms blared throughout the facility.
The Vorith had discovered the charges and were desperately trying to disarm them. But Kira's placement had been precise, and Hassan's encryption on the detonators was unbreakable. She raced through corridors filled with enemies, her blade flashing, her body moving on pure instinct. Guards fell before her like wheat before a scythe. She did not stop, could not stop, every second bringing her closer to escape or death.
8 minutes.
She reached the rendezvous point.
Shadow Unit was there, holding a defensive position against wave after wave of Vorith attackers. Ghost! Morrison shouted. Status? Kira's device spoke as she joined the firing line, charges planted. 8 minutes to detonation. We need to move. Working on it. Hassan, tell me you found us a ride. Hassan was typing frantically on a portable terminal. There's a docking bay 300 meters from here. Enemy shuttle, should be big enough for all of us. But, it's heavily guarded. How heavily? About 200 soldiers. Perfect. Volkov, you're on point. Everyone else, follow his lead. We punch through or we die here.
The push to the docking bay was the most brutal combat Shadow unit had ever experienced.
Volkov led the charge, his massive weapons tearing through enemy lines.
Tanaka followed, her enhanced reflexes allowing her to dodge fire and return it with deadly accuracy. Morrison and Hassan provided covering fire while Santos protected the flanks.
And Kira. Kira became death itself.
She moved through the Voreth like a force of nature. Her blade claimed life after life. Her body flowed between attacks that should have killed her. She was everywhere and nowhere, a ghost made flesh, a legend made real.
6 minutes. They reached the docking bay.
The shuttle was there, surrounded by guards making a final desperate stand.
Take them down, Morrison ordered.
Shadow unit attacked with everything they had.
Energy weapons blazed. Blades clashed.
Bodies fell on both sides. Santos screamed as an energy bolt caught her in the shoulder.
Volkov roared with pain as a blade sliced his arm.
Hassan dropped as a stray shot grazed his head.
4 minutes. The last guard fell. Morrison helped Hassan to his feet while Tanaka supported Santos.
Volkov, bleeding badly but still standing, provided cover as they boarded the shuttle.
Ghost, get us out of here. Kira threw herself into the pilot's seat.
She had never flown a Voreth vessel before, but the controls were surprisingly intuitive. Her hands moved across the interface, activating systems, powering engines.
2 minutes. The shuttle lifted off. Kira aimed it toward the nearest exit, a massive door that was slowly closing as the facility went into lockdown.
"We're not going to make it," Hassan said weakly. "Yes we are," Kira's device replied. She pushed the engines to maximum. The shuttle rocketed forward, acceleration pressing everyone back into their seats.
1 minute.
The door was almost closed.
The gap was shrinking, barely large enough for the shuttle to fit through. 30 seconds. Kira adjusted their trajectory, threading the needle with inhuman precision. 15 seconds.
They burst through the gap with centimeters to spare.
5 seconds.
They cleared the facility's perimeter.
0 seconds.
Behind them, the command center exploded. The detonation was visible from every ship in the system. A chain reaction tore through the facility, detonating stored weapons and ammunition, rupturing power systems, destroying everything. The artificial planetoid that had been the heart of the Voreth war machine became an expanding cloud of debris and fire.
The enemy fleet, already struggling against the human assault, fell into complete chaos. Without central coordination, their formations broke apart.
Ships that had been working together now collided or fled in random directions.
The human commander, Admiral Cross, seized the opportunity immediately.
"All ships, press the attack.
The enemy is broken. Push them back." The battle that followed was a rout. Voreth ships were destroyed by the dozen, then, by the 100.
The survivors retreated, fleeing the system in desperate disorder. By the time it was over, the largest Voreth defeat in history had been achieved. And, somewhere in the chaos, a small shuttle carrying 6 battered humans limped toward the safety of friendly lines. The rescue ship found them 3 hours later. Shadow unit was in bad shape. Everyone had wounds of varying severity.
Santos was unconscious from blood loss.
Hassan had a serious concussion.
Volkov was barely holding himself together through sheer willpower.
But they were alive.
All of them.
When the medical teams rushed to help, Kira pushed them away. She typed quickly, "Others first."
"I can wait."
"Ghost, you're bleeding from at least a dozen wounds," I said. "Others first."
The medics, recognizing the steel in her stance, complied.
Morrison found Kira sitting alone an hour later, after the team had been stabilized. She was staring out a viewport at the stars, her expression unreadable. "Hell of a thing," Morrison said, sitting beside her.
Kira nodded. "We did it. We actually did it.
The war isn't over, but we broke their spine. It'll take them years to recover from this."
He paused.
"You saved us."
Again. I don't know how many times that makes now. Kara's device spoke. I don't keep count. Maybe you should. It might help you understand just how extraordinary you are. Kira turned to look at him. Her eyes held something new, something that had not been there before. Peace. I met a Voreth commander, she typed. In the facility. It let me go. Morrison's eyebrows rose. What? It said the war was a mistake. That not all Voreth wanted destruction. That some only wanted to survive, like us. She looked back at the stars. I think, when this war ends, we should remember that. Not all enemies are evil. Some are just different. Morrison was quiet for a long time. That's a very human thing to say, he finally replied. And a very wise one. The aftermath of the Battle of the Command Center was monumental. News of the victory spread across human space like wildfire. Celebrations erupted on every colony, every station, every ship. For the first time since the war began, people dared to believe that victory was possible. And, everywhere, one name was on everyone's lips. Ghost. The silent soldier who had destroyed the enemy's heart. The woman who could not speak but, whose actions thundered across the galaxy. The legend who had become more than human. Official records tried to contain the truth. Military command wanted to keep Kara's identity secret, to protect her from enemy retaliation. But, legends cannot be contained. Stories spread, growing with each telling. Ghost became a symbol, an ideal, a representation of everything humanity could be when pushed to its limits. And, Kara Chen, the small woman who had chosen silence when she was 7 years old, found herself at the center of it all. 6 months after the battle, the Voreth sued for peace. Their losses had been catastrophic. The destruction of the command center had crippled their ability to coordinate attacks. Their fleets were scattered and demoralized. Their leaders were fighting among themselves about how to proceed. Negotiations began on a neutral station in deep space. To the surprise of everyone, the Voreth requested a specific person to be present at the talks. They asked for Ghost. The negotiation chamber was stark and cold, designed to be uncomfortable for both species equally. On one side sat human diplomats, military officers, and political leaders. On the other sat Voreth representatives, including the ancient commander Kira had met in the facility. Kira stood apart from both groups, positioned between them like a bridge across a divide. The Voreth commander spoke first, its words translated by technology. We requested the presence of Ghost because she represents something important. She is proof that individuals can change the course of history. She is evidence that even in the darkest times, light can be found. It turned to face Kira directly. Ghost, I speak now to you, not to your government. I speak as one warrior to another. Will you hear my words? Kira nodded. The war between our peoples was born of fear. We saw your species spreading across the stars, and we were afraid. Afraid that you would take everything, leave nothing for us. So we struck first, hoping to eliminate the threat before it grew too strong. The commander paused. We were wrong. We underestimated your determination, your courage, your capacity for sacrifice. We thought you were weak because you were small, fragile, short-lived. We did not understand that these limitations are what make you strong. You fight for every moment because you know how precious moments are. Kira listened, her face still. What we ask now is not forgiveness. We have committed too many crimes for that. What we ask is a chance. A chance to prove that we can be different. A chance to build something other than death. The commander extended one of its clawed hands, palm up. Will you give us that chance, Ghost? Will you speak for your people and say whether peace is possible? Every eye in the chamber turned to Kira. She looked at the commander's outstretched hand. She looked at the Voreth delegation, aliens who had killed millions of her species. She looked at the human representatives, people who had lost everything to this war. Then, she reached into her pocket and pulled out her notepad. She wrote for a long time, longer than anyone expected. When she finished, she handed the paper not to a translator but to the commander directly. The commander read the words, its alien features shifting in what might have been surprise. Then, it began to read aloud, translating Kara's words for everyone to hear. I was 7 years old when I stopped speaking. I chose silence because no one listened. Because words seemed pointless in a world full of pain and violence. The chamber was absolutely still. For most of my life, I communicated through action alone. I fought. I killed. I became what others needed me to be. A weapon. A ghost. A legend. The commander continued reading. But legends are not real. They are stories we tell to make sense of chaos. I am not a legend. I am a woman who has lost too much and fought too hard and survived when I should have died. Kira's eyes were bright with tears she refused to shed. You ask if peace is possible. I cannot answer for my people. But I can answer for myself. I believe that anyone who is willing to change deserves the chance to try. I believe that even enemies can become allies if they choose understanding over fear. I believe that the future does not have to be written in blood. The commander's voice softened. You asked me to speak, so I am speaking. Not with my voice, but with my heart. Peace is possible. It will be difficult and slow and painful. Old wounds will resist healing. Old hatreds will refuse to die. But if we choose to try, if we choose to see each other as more than monsters, then anything is possible. The commander lowered the paper. This is what Ghost says. These are her words. Will you honor them? The peace treaty was signed 3 weeks later. It was not a perfect peace. There were compromises and concessions on both sides. Some people, human and Vorath alike, refused to accept it and continued fighting in isolated incidents for years afterward. But the war, the great conflict that had defined a generation, was over. And, in the records of that treaty, in the section listing the witnesses who had made it possible, one name stood out. Kara Chen, known as Ghost, silent soldier of humanity. She had never spoken a word aloud. But, her voice had changed the course of history. 1 year after the treaty, Kara returned to the orphanage where she had grown up. It had been rebuilt after the attack, a new structure on the site of so much pain. Children played in the courtyard, their laughter echoing off walls that had once known only screams. Kira stood at the entrance, watching them. She was recognized now, her face known across the galaxy, but the children did not seem to notice. To them, she was just another visitor. Santos stood beside her, as she had since they had become family. Are you okay? Santos asked. Kira nodded. What are you thinking? Kira typed, I'm thinking about who I was when I lived here. A scared child who had no voice and no hope. I'm thinking about who I became after the attack. A ghost who communicated only through violence. She paused. And I'm thinking about who I am now. Someone who found her voice without ever speaking a word. Someone who discovered that silence can be powerful if you use it right. She watched a small girl playing alone in the corner of the courtyard. The child reminded Kira of herself, quiet and separate, watching the world from a distance. I want to help her, Kira typed. I want to help all of them. To show them that being different isn't a weakness. That the things that make us outsiders can also make us strong. Santos smiled. Then, do it. You've got the resources now. You've got the influence. You could open schools, create programs, change thousands of lives. Kira considered this. Then, she typed, I think I will. She walked toward the small girl in the corner. The child looked up with wary eyes as Kira approached. Kira knelt down so they were at the same level. She pulled out her notepad and wrote something simple. Hello. My name is Kira. What's yours? The girl hesitated. Then, she whispered, so quietly it was almost inaudible, Anna. Kira smiled and wrote, That's a beautiful name. Would you like to be friends? Anna looked at the notepad, then at Kara.
Something in the child's expression shifted.
Recognition, perhaps.
Understanding that this stranger knew what it was like to be different.
Yes, Anna whispered. I would like that.
Kara sat down beside her, and they watched the other children play together. Years passed. The galaxy healed slowly from the wounds of war.
New relationships formed between humans and Vorith. Trade began. Cultural exchange followed.
What had been enemies became, if not friends, at least neighbors who could coexist. Shadow Unit was officially retired, its members decorated and released from active duty. They stayed close, meeting regularly to remember what they had been through together. Morrison became an instructor at the military academy, teaching the next generation of soldiers. He always told them about Ghost, about what one person could accomplish with enough determination and skill. Tanaka returned to civilian life, eventually finding peace in unexpected places. She opened a small shop on a quiet colony and spent her days helping customers with gentle efficiency.
Volkov wrote his memoirs, which became wildly popular.
He told the story of Shadow Unit with his characteristic bluster, though he always grew quiet when he reached the parts about Ghost. Hassan founded a technology company that developed better communication devices for people with disabilities. He said it was inspired by watching Kara overcome her limitations again and again. Santos married and had children. She named her daughter Kira, and told her stories about a silent soldier who saved the world. And Kira Chin herself became something she had never expected. A voice for the voiceless. She established the Ghost Foundation, an organization dedicated to helping children who felt different, alone, or broken. The foundation opened centers across human space, providing education, support, and community for those who needed it most.
Kira visited these centers whenever she could. She never spoke, but she wrote letters to every child who reached out to her.
Thousands of letters, each one telling the same message: you are not alone.
You are not broken.
You are unique, and that uniqueness is your strength.
Find your voice, whatever form it takes. And never stop fighting for the life you deserve.
On the 20th anniversary of the peace treaty, a ceremony was held on the neutral station where negotiations had taken place. Leaders from both species gathered to commemorate 2 decades of peace. Kara was asked to attend, to represent the individuals who had made that peace possible.
She stood before the assembled crowd, human and Vorith alike.
Thousands of eyes watched her, waiting for some gesture, some acknowledgement. Kira raised her hand to her heart. Then, she bowed. And, in that silence, in that single gesture, she said everything that needed to be said.
Gratitude.
Respect. Hope. The crowd responded with applause that seemed to shake the stars themselves. Later that night, Kara sat alone on an observation deck, watching the galaxy spin in eternal patterns of light and darkness. Santos found her there, as she always did.
Hell of a journey, Santos said, sitting beside her. From that recruitment station on the moon to here. I never would have imagined it. Kira typed, neither would I. Any regrets? Kira thought for a long time. Then, she wrote, 1. I wish I could have spoken to you. All of you. Just once. To tell you what you mean to me in my own voice. Santos took her hand. Ghost, we've always heard you.
Every action, every sacrifice, every moment of courage.
You've been speaking to us since the day we met. Just not with words. Kira's eyes glistened.
You taught us something important, Santos continued.
That words are just one way to communicate. And, maybe not even the most important way.
Love is communicated through presence.
Courage is communicated through action. Hope is communicated by simply refusing to give up.
She squeezed Kara's hand. You never needed to speak, Ghost.
You were always the loudest voice in the room.
Kara looked at her friend, her family, her sister in all the ways that mattered. And, for the first time in 47 years, she opened her mouth.
What came out was not elegant.
It was roughened, broken, a voice unused for decades, barely recognizable as human speech. But the words were clear.
Thank you. Santos's eyes went wide.
Tears streamed down her face.
Ghost. Kira, you.
Thank you, Kira said again, the words painful and beautiful at the same time.
For everything.
Then, she fell silent, as she had been for most of her life. But, in that moment, in those 2 words, she had said everything she had ever needed to say. Santos pulled her into an embrace, and they held each other as the stars wheeled overhead. 2 women who had walked through hell together and emerged not just alive, but alive in ways that mattered.
A medic who healed wounds that went deeper than flesh.
And a ghost who had finally found her voice. The legend of Ghost lived on long after Kira-chan was gone.
Historians debated the details. Military analysts studied her tactics.
Philosophers examined her choices. Everyone had an opinion about who she was and what she represented. But those who knew her, those who had fought beside her and loved her, remembered something different. They remembered a small woman with dark hair and quiet eyes. They remembered someone who never spoke but always listened. They remembered a soldier who killed without hesitation and healed without fanfare. They remembered a ghost who became a legend who became a symbol who became hope itself. No one heard her speak.
Not really. Not in the way that most people think of speaking.
But, when her battle name exploded across the channels, when the universe finally understood what she was and what she had done, everyone heard her. They heard her in the silence of a predator moving through shadows. They heard her in the thunder of enemy forces falling before her blade. They heard her in the broadcasts that broke enemy coordination and rallied human spirits. They heard her in the words of a peace treaty that ended a war. They heard her in the letters she wrote to children who felt alone. They heard her in the lives she saved and the futures she made possible. Ghost spoke in a language older than words, more powerful than any speech.
She spoke in action. And the universe listened. Forever.